Welcome to Just Relationships, the show that offers you concrete ways to make your relationships better. Whether it's your boss, your spouse, your children, or your friends, the quality of your relationships in life directly affects how you feel about yourself and the success you achieve. Your host, Dr. Duffy Spencer, a psychotherapist, telecoach, author, and seminar leader, will interview top experts to help you learn to manage this essential part of your life. And now, here's your host, Dr. Duffy Spencer.
Greetings to you. Well, this is a very, very special occasion for me. I am very happy to introduce you to Dr. Judi Hollis, who is a best-selling author of several books, which you are going to hear about. And I also want you to know that Dr. Judi Hollis is live in the studio, and I don't usually do live in the studio guests, but I am very proud to say that Judi Hollis is a very good personal friend of mine who generally lives in California, and she's in New York for a little bit, and so we wanted to do a show or two together. So welcome, Dr. Judi Hollis.
Hi there, Duffy. Hi. Hi, everyone out there.
So I actually saw you before I met you, which was on the Oprah show.
Oh.
And I was so thrilled to see you, this beautiful, slender woman who was talking about fat being a family affair. And Oprah was absolutely enamored with you, and you were so lively, and I was so thrilled that someone was talking about fat as an issue that brought psychological pain and all the other things that we now know about fat and what it means in terms of addiction, etc. And I want to hear about that, how it is you wrote that book. And I also want people to know that Dr. Judi Hollis has written several other books. I'm sorry. I can't believe I'm doing this. Fat and Furious, about mother-daughter relationships and weight. And then Hot and Heavy, about the relationship between food and sexuality. Mm-hmm. And then from bagels to Buddha. And you are writing another book now.
Right.
Yes.
This book is called Diva Seeking Shiva.
Diva Seeking Shiva. You have a way with words, Judy.
I do.
Yes.
The subtitle is Facing Mortality Without a Net.
Oh.
Yes, aren't we all?
Brilliant. Well, some people have nets of a certain kind. Mm-hmm. So tell us how it is that you first wrote Fat is a Family Affair.
Well, I had been obese all my life. I was an Army brat, and the way that I coped with moving all the time is I just ate myself into oblivion. So my drug of choice at that time was food, and I ate voraciously, and I got fatter and fatter, and I basically dieted my way up to 222 pounds.
What makes you say dieted your way up?
Because I did not get there by willy-nilly, just running amok every day, deciding I'm eating whatever I want. I did it like most normally neurotic Americans, as I woke up every morning with firm resolve that today's going to be the day I'm going to get on that lifelong diet. I'm going to get this weight off so I can be happy with my life, so I could meet the right man, so I could not feel self-conscious when I walked into a room. You know, I was really a freak in the culture. Throughout my childhood, I was ridiculed, and then as an adult, I knew it was always an issue. It didn't matter how smart I was or what a pleasing personality, that everyone saw a fat person.
It was about looks, and yes, people saw fat and they dismissed, right? They dismissed fat people.
Yeah. And I was the same. Mm-hmm. I felt the same way. I didn't want any fat friends. And I also judged myself for being fat. I had not one ounce of compassion for myself. I never once acknowledged how hard it was, and I was trying my best. Never any of that. Always, you should have done better. How'd you let that happen? You know?
I was in the same boat, and I'm thinking about the terms that people use. pig, glutton, all of that. And I, too, judged myself so sharply. It was lack of self-control, and other people could control themselves.
Sure.
I didn't realize the nature of addiction and how it can manifest in many, many different ways, some ways being invisible, and, of course, this is very visible.
Yeah, and
Yes.
you know, with most of the other addictions, there is a certain compassion about the medical community saying, yes, it's an illness, it's a disease, and you do need help. But with overeating, it's still, well, buy this book or just get it together and use your own willpower. Somehow your willpower was going to make you stop doing this.
Yes, and there was a lot of appreciation and sympathy for your bulimics as well as your anorectics.
Right.
And simple binge eating disorder was not even in the DSM manual
right.
for diagnostic mental problems, emotional, and I was so happy that it finally became its own category.
Well, let me tell you a little story about that, okay?
Yes, please.
So, I'll just finish about why I wrote the book,
Right.
and then we'll go to that. So,
okay.
So I had been an expert in alcoholism for years. I was a social worker, and I was taking classes toward my PhD, one a semester forever, and I finally got myself to the place where I said, I definitely need help. I'd done Weight Watchers, 9-time loser at Weight Watchers, but still Weight Watchers was focusing all the time on food.
Yeah.
And what I saw was that these alcoholics and addicts, I was working, like I said, in the field, and people said,
the field of alcoholism.
Right. People said, you work so well with the addictive personality. And I said, thank you. I just thought I was brilliant. And I never realized that what I was doing with food was the same thing as what they were doing with alcohol. So I got into my own quote-unquote recovery of facing my eating as an addiction, of looking at the psychological things about myself that would have to change in order for me to like myself enough to feel deserving enough to lose the weight and keep it off. And so for my PhD, and what I did is I developed the nation's first eating disorder unit.
The nation's first eating disorder unit.
That's right. It was modeled after alcoholism programs. And I had been working with alcoholic families for many years. In fact, a colleague and I coined the phrase codependence.
Really?
There was not such a phrase before. If people go to my website, which is judyhollis.com.
You coined the term?
Yeah, I'll tell you exactly what happened.
Oh.
If they go to my website, judyhollis.com, and look under Walk of Stars, I got a star on the Walk of Stars in Palm Springs. And at that ceremony, Alan, my colleague, he was there, and we discussed how we came to that term. We kept sitting around saying, what shall we call the family members, the spouses? Well, they're not really addicts themselves, even though sometimes they act in an addictive manner.
My goodness.
And we said, let's call them codependents. Bum-ba! And now, of course, it's a big phrase,
It sure is.
Yeah.
It's a very well-known phrase.
Yeah. So
I did not know that my friend coined the term codependent.
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, my word. Wow.
So I went on with my PhD, and I wrote my PhD dissertation about what I was doing in the field, and the title was Fat is a Family Affair. And we looked at how you had to change the dynamics within the family system in order for a person to really stop overeating and really be in recovery.
Okay. What we understand about families is that they are systems.
Yes.
And people hadn't really thought much of a group of people together as a system and what that involved. And then, okay, so the whole family needs help.
Yes, that's number one. And number two, the family members who came into treatment thought we had them there for them to help the overeater. But instead, we wanted them to get some help because we realized how they were suffering watching someone they love commit slow suicide in front of their eyes and feeling so helpless and out of control.
Yes.
So we brought them in to help themselves. But the other thing was we wanted them to see what it's really like and how hard it really is to really keep weight off.
Right.
Well, anyway, on and on and on. But anyway, what happened was with the book, I wrote it as my PhD dissertation, and then it was suggested you should write this for a popular audience. So I went back and I did that, and it got published through a lot of different machinations, and it became a bestseller. It took 5 years altogether with all promotion and marketing and my lecturing, but it became a bestseller, and Oprah was very interested in it. Yes, I'll tell you stories about being on the Oprah show. But you know, at the same time, the medical model was coming in really strong into treatment centers, and insurance companies wanted to save money. So they didn't want to spend the money of having a person stay in a hospital program and then invite their families to come in 3 nights a week for their own group therapy. So they said, you know, maybe this eating problem is just a Prozac deficiency. So they started deciding that they would authorize treating the problem by just medicating, by giving drugs. And that was very disillusioning for me because we had made such wonderful advances for people. And the understanding and compassion that was happening in the whole country was a whole new ball of wax. But things changed, and what you see today is pretty much, even if people accept that the overeater has an illness, they say the treatment should either be surgery, bypass surgery, or medicate. And so the person themselves never has an opportunity to really participate in their own recovery and to make it really work for them and to take an honest look at their emotional life and their behavior. So let me not neglect, though, that I also in this process lost my own 85 pounds while I was helping others. Because I started,
way to go.
Yeah, I was practicing what I preached.
You were practicing what you preached. What a concept. Okay, so when you say the medical model was coming into the treatment centers, what you're meaning, let me just check, is that people were assuming that alcoholism was a disease. You weren't just a Bowery bum. And somehow that got translated into overeating was also a disease.
Yes.
Okay. And then
that's what I was primarily responsible for.
The overeating.
Yes, was teaching that overeating is a disease and with treatment can get better.
Right. And with the medical model, people could get insurance and the family members could get insurance. Now the bucks are racking up. And then what happened?
Well, it became, okay, let me back up.
It was too expensive. They withdrew, and they said bypass surgery.
That would be cheaper, and get them out of the hospital and give them pills. But at the same time, I started all this talk because you were talking about the diagnosis of binge eating disorder. So let me tell you what happened. When I first started bringing people into the hospital, at that time we were operating out of the DSM-4. That's the list of diagnostic criteria for admissions. And it's sort of like a Chinese menu. You look at the charts, and if there's 2 from column A and 3 from column B, then we'll call them an egg roll, So that's how we came up. So as it seemed, most of the people, and they were mostly ladies at that time, most of the people I was bringing into treatment did qualify under bulimia, the way bulimia was written then.
Yeah.
Because it didn't just mean vomiting. It meant people taking in mass quantities and then taking excessive measures to get rid of them.
Excessive measures. It could be laxatives as well. Yeah.
Exercise, restrictive diets.
Yes.
So all my ladies certainly qualified. Well, and this is a little known secret, but I'm going to tell it because you're my friend.
Yeah.
So this was out in Los Angeles where I was developing these programs. And they were also developing a program at UCLA. there was a doctor there named Michael Strober, and he was very much against the idea that I would let fat ladies have the respect and dignity to be brought into a treatment center. He felt this applied to anorexics and vomiters, bulimics they called them, but that isn't what bulimia means. And he tried to keep fat ladies out of treatment. And this started, I've got to tell you, this started a campaign between he and I that lasted for the next 25 years.
Campaign between you two.
About can we treat overeaters in a medical establishment and give them the respect they deserve? Well, finally, 25 years later, at the International Conference on, I forgot what they called it, anorexia and something. Anyway, they decided there to come up with a brand new diagnosis that they were going to call BED, binge eating disorder. Mm-hmm. So I was grateful because finally we were going to get the respect we deserve.
I was grateful too, having the addiction of mostly sugar and the binge eating concept.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, but still today, if you go to most treatment centers, you'll very rarely find real good psychological treatment for overeaters. And I think that has to do with the fact that most people in our society do overeat, okay? Everybody's on some kind of a diet. Also, doctors. So they would rather treat somebody like an anorexic or a vomiter, which seems to be doing abhorrent behavior.
Right.
Someone you can hold at arm's length.
Right.
You know?
But just a normal, run-of-the-mill overeater, when all of America is on junk food, and the junk food industry reigns, and they make billions upon billions of dollars trying to get us to eat this stuff, and Americans eat it. And
we're certainly fighting City Hall. Look what Michelle Obama tried really hard.
Oh,
right?
She sure
she
did.
Was a hope for us.
Yes,
but it just goes back to the power structures.
It goes back to the power structures, and it goes back to the idea of the gluttony. Gluttony, one of the 7 deadly sins, and it's a sin. So it's kind of anti. Everything.
Yeah, so you shouldn't get any treatment for it.
Right, you don't deserve
should just
treatment.
Get lashings with a
wet
whip.
Noodle.
Yeah, and a wet noodle.
Right.
A non-carb noodle.
Exactly. They were able to move the alcoholism concept into the disease model. Yeah. But they could not really move it well into the overeating. They could do it for anorexia and bulimia, which got a lot of sympathy and empathy. But if you were a binge eater, forget it. That's why I was so thrilled when it became a diagnostic criteria.
Yeah.
Now, what years are we talking about, Dr. Judi Hollis?
Oh, let's see. I started the first eating disorder unit in 75.
75.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then about, it was in the 90s that they finally got to BED. They finally had that as a diagnosis.
Wow.
And you just got to be careful about these diagnoses. I mean, doctors do the best they can, but the way these DSMs are created is sometimes sitting around a kitchen table. And the guy who is working on it, his wife says, "Oh, you can't call that part of an eating disorder because I do that," and so then they take out that behavior from the diagnosis. It's not as
so
scientific.
much more subjective than people really think.
Right.
Yes. So you wrote this book, and I think it was a seismic shift, sea change, that you wrote this book, that you taught people this concept, the whole system. The whole idea of psychological problems and addiction and needing support and help rather than censure.
And I was showing that the way alcoholics in recovery have to work on their personalities. In the book, I bring out the different types, the different personality issues that you have to work on, and they're pretty much the same for alcoholics and overeaters and all drug addicts.
Yes.
About living learning how to live a more honest life, learning to live with rigorous honesty so that you're not running scared and trying to cover up something, that you have integrity, that you just relax a little more, that you stop the striving. And I'll tell you the truth now, I'm pretty much not doing very much counseling, just a little bit here and there. I am still writing books. But the world today is even worse than it was then, and people are being pushed so hard into competition and
yes,
and
even more competitive. You're saying,
yeah, and it's scary.
Yes,
scary.
Yes, yeah. So, okay.
Oh, wait, let me just say one more thing about that. So people who come through treatment programs, what I try to tell them is, we're creating you as a freak in the culture. We're not doing an adjustment model here. We're teaching you to live differently than the normal run-of-the-mill person.
It's countercultural.
Yes. Sometimes you're going to feel your life is better, but other times you're going to feel it's worse. Like, who needs this? I'm losing friends. I can't go. It's not just that I can't go to a drunken orgy party, but I can't even stand to be around cheap and superficial people making small talk and showing off, you know?
Yeah, and as you said, cover yourself up and hide. And we talk about it, the 12-step programs is no grandiosity. What is it? The egomaniacs with a inferiority complex.
Yes.
And what I love about the 12-step concept is life on life's terms.
That's right.
That you are not God, and that the world does not have to bend to your will. And if it doesn't, then you're entitled to have a little temper tantrum, whether it's drugging or sugaring, or which is a drug in my view, or anything else.
But what we're doing in treating these folks, and what I'm always doing in treating myself, is coming back to the choice point. Okay? I have a choice here. I can go binge my brains out, or I can try to really pay attention to what I'm feeling and try to find a corrective emotional response. Make a choice about how I'm going to perform in this situation that will let me walk away and say, you know what? I like how she handled that. She really is somebody I admire and respect.
Yes.
And then I don't have the drunken hangover the next morning. I don't have the sugar withdrawals. I don't have the guilt and self-loathing about I broke a promise to myself again.
Right. And, so instead of having a hissy fit when you don't get what you want, and then you feel entitled to use whatever it is to stop the pain, you're suggesting something really freakish and radical, like feeling your feelings.
Right. Not only feeling them, but also finding an adult, check this, an adult way to deal with feelings.
Yes.
It's okay to have feelings, not stuff them.
Yes.
Have them, but bring them to the table as an equal partner in situations. That's why all of my books, except for these last two, but my other books were all about relationships, because that's where we have the greatest difficulty, and the relationship we love the most is that relationship with food, because
it's so primordial.
Yes, and we can control
completely.
It.
It's accessible. It's legal.
It asks nothing of us.
It's inexpensive. It's a one-way relationship, as you say, where we have complete control, and there is this incredible paradox of someone being out of control, and yet they think they're instituting control. I can do whatever I want. I can eat this.
Yeah.
I can have it if I want. I make that decision.
Yeah.
So it's very paradoxical. I'm in control, I'm out of control at the same time.
And we try to ask people to pay attention to who's making that decision. Of course, you have the right to eat whatever you want, do whatever you want. But which part of you is making that immediate decision. And most compulsions last for 15 minutes. And if we could find someone to talk to or some alternative activity to do during that really compulsive time.
Yeah. And the other, I think, physiological piece is that the adrenaline is flowing in our veins. We're in fight-flight. And by definition, we can't think well when we're in fight-flight because the blood is going to our major limbs to help us fight or flee.
Right.
And it leaves our stomachs, which is why we were told don't go into the water after you eat. You need to be able to move your limbs so you don't drown and then you might get cramps or something. And it leaves our brains. So the idea of just even distracting yourself to let the adrenaline abet a little bit from your blood.
Yes.
And where you can be clear-headed again. But the idea of feeling one's feelings. Most people don't know what that means in the body to feel their feelings. And the thoughts are so painful. The thoughts around nobody likes me, I'm unlovable, I'm rejectable. The pain of that is intolerable for many people.
And the problem is that when we're loaded on whatever substance, what our brain is telling us is not necessarily really our reality. We don't know who's talking to us.
Right.
Okay? It could be that I want an excuse to go out and use something again, so I'm going to make a fight with my wife, or we don't know.
Make a fight.
Yeah. So we don't know what we're dealing with, and we can't trust that voice. So the only way you can trust that voice is when you get raw, when you pull in that food and eat less than you want to eat. And I know how hard that is.
Yes.
Every meal it's hard. To leave the table half full, to just have that sense of, well, that'll satisfy me. And 20 minutes later, it might feel good.
But people cannot tolerate feeling undersatisfied. And I have very good news for everyone. Guess what? This is the first of a 3-part series with Dr. Judi Hollis. So if you're interested in this show and you want your friends to hear it, you can download a podcast of this show. And tune in next week and the week after for more of Dr. Judi Hollis. And meanwhile, this is Dr. Duffy Spencer saying goodbye for now and wishing you great relationships.